Alright, so as you guys just heard, the truck is running. I know you've seen it in a few videos, but that's one success. But there is a problem. The truck runs, but it doesn't move. So we have everything connected from the engine to the driveline. Engine, transmission, drive shaft, rear end. Everything supposedly works, but that's not the case. So the thing with that is we believe the transmission is leaking. We don't believe that. We know it's leaking. Here's the problem. That is preventing it from locking up and actually moving the truck, because without transmission fluid, he can't move. If you take this back to when we were working on the engine and transmission outside of the truck and we were getting everything together, well, I was at that stage where, while we have it out, we might as well, work on it, do extra stuff, because it's easier to do it in or outside of the truck than in the truck later on. Well, I did that with pretty much everything except the transmission, and I forgot some critical things like the seals on the transmission. I don't know why I didn't do it. I thought I did, but I didn't. We have some transmission leaks, so what that ultimately means, and I hate to say it, but I believe we're gonna have to pull the transmission. So you see the truck's on the lift behind me. I am really not looking forward to this, but here, let me just show you kind of where the transmission is leaking, or at least where I believe to be leaking. And yeah, it's no fun. I do not want to pull the transmission, but to get this truck running, I believe that's what we're gonna have to do. So I'm not excited about it, but it is what it is at this point. If I want to get this thing moving and done, I got to do it. So here, I'm like I said, I'm going to go ahead and show you under the truck. All right, we are under the truck. This is the oil pan right here. This is the bell housing for the transmission. You can see there's a line of fluid going in between the cracks there, which leads me to believe that transmission fluid's leaking from probably that front main seal on the transmission behind the torque converter. Not happy about that. We look over here, kind of looking at the side of the transmission pan. There's fluid right on the edge of this shield, and doing some looking, that's where the dipstick tube plugs in. I believe we are losing transmission fluid there as well, which is not very great. Also, I know these transmission pan bolts are not torqued to spec, so I probably need to replace that seal as well. This all really sucks, like I said, but I think ultimately we're going to have to pull the transmission, and that is no bueno on my book, but it is what it is. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and end it here tonight, and I will pick up when I'm back working on the truck. Alright guys, leaving off where I did, I am back out working on the truck. I am going to work on pulling that transmission like I said previously. So, a lot of fun. Not really, you guys know that. But I'm going to go ahead and get started with that. First taking the drive shaft off, then probably going and doing the starter, etc. And then, slowly get working our way towards actually pulling that out. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get to it now. As y'all just saw, I made a huge mess on the floor here. Had to go out and get more of the quick dry, or whatever you want to call it, to soak up the transmission fluid. But as soon as I pulled that drive shaft out right there, yeah, the transmission fluid just came pouring out. I was not planning on that. I did get a plug for it, but I didn't act fast enough to not spill a ton of transmission fluid out. But yeah, I'm not used to having transmission fluid in the transmissions when I pull the drive shaft, so I wasn't really expecting that, but you can see what happened now. So yeah, just wanted to show I do make mistakes, and that's just one of them. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and clean this up and then get back working on this. So as y'all saw, I just took out the transmission pan, and you can see I am glad I took it out. The gasket here on the pan is trashed. I mean, it's bad. Yeah, I mean, you can see it cracked off there. I did chip a little bit of it off, but this thing's gonna have to use a razor blade to get it to come off because it is stuck, and I believe it's somewhat dry rot as well, which is not good. Another thing you may have noticed is when I took it out, I didn't use the plug. Well, I tried getting the plug off by hand. I tried using a hammer and a ratchet, and then I went up to the impacts, and the impacts were just twisting the head, so I could not get that plug out. So I just ended up loosening the bolts around the edges and, you know, trying to do it that way, and I did get it out. It's just a little messier that way. This right here is the reason there are torque specs for plugs, because that's just unacceptable. I don't understand why people do that, but I don't want to get into a rant. Basically, just you know, look up the torque specs, torque it down to where it should be, and you'll be good for future maintenance, because I don't want this to be an issue again. So I'm gonna have to try getting that one out and replacing it, because the head on that's too screwed up now. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean this up, probably with brake cleaner, get everything out. It is nasty here in the bottom. I got a new filter for it, so I'm going to put a new filter on, and then I will also be taking this gasket off and getting everything ready to go back in. So there we go. Just wanted to update you guys a little bit on what I was doing. Y'all, it is the next day. I did some research last night regarding that stuck drain plug in the transmission pan, and through my research, it seems like this is a common problem with GM transpan bolts, essentially the drain plugs. It seems like, especially in the 4L60Es, the drain plug gets incredibly stuck and the bolts round out. They actually don't have a deep hex pattern on it, and that causes a lot of issue with rounding out the bolt, etc. So I have rounded out my bolt in my transpan. I talked to my dad a little bit last night, and from what it sounds like with him, which he does bring up a good reasoning, I haven't made it budge on the pan at all, but his take on it was, the next time that I'm going to be looking at this transmission, it's probably going to have pieces floating around inside. The transmission, we haven't done anything to as far as modifications or just building it up any. So yeah, he's thinking the next time we pull the trans, it's going to be in pieces. So with that, we're going to end up dropping the pan anyway, and I guess I'm not too concerned as long as this doesn't leak. So I'm actually just going to change the gasket out and not worry about the rounded bolt, even though it will bother me because I don't like stuff being like that. That's not the quality I like. But he brought up a good point. I do think the next time that we pull this trans, or at least look at the fluid in the trans, we will probably have chunks at the bottom of it, because I don't think the 4L60 is going to hold up to this power, but or at least for how I drive, but we'll see. So yeah, I'm just going to keep on moving forward. I'm going to change the filter out, and I will go ahead and put the new seal on, the new gasket, and put the pan back on. Then we can go and continue further into pulling this pan out, or not pan, then we can go into further pulling this transmission out. Alright, as you guys can see, got the pan on, I put the filter in, everything is good. Here you can get a better look at how stripped that bolt is. Not very great, but we already went over that, so all of that is good to go. I'm actually going to start labeling my wires again, because I want to make sure I don't mess any of that up. I don't want to mess any of that up, so I'm going to label these like this is the driver side O2 sensor. These will probably just put neutral safety switch and etc. I got a P clamp up there attached to the transmission, so I got quite a few things that I'm gonna have to do to get basically everything ready to go. So the P clamp is up there. I don't know if you can actually see that or not, but yeah, I'm gonna start getting everything ready. Alright guys, so after what unfolded just now, I realized I made a mistake. So, figured out the reason why the truck would not move when we put it in gear. And that is because we never put the torque converter bolts in from the flywheel. A very stupid mistake. I don't even know how we missed that. So that'd be the reason why it didn't move. And then the theory goes from there that since that wasn't connected, the transmission oil pump wasn't moving, which means all the transmission fluid we were putting in wasn't going into the torque converter or throughout the transmission really. Thus, we overfilled it, and that led to transmission coming out of the, or transmission fluid coming out of the, I'm assuming it's the dipstick tube, but yeah. So, another thing is, I put in the top 2 bolts for the transmission to the engine, and those are a nightmare to get to. To actually get that, we're going to have to take the intake manifold off, but nonetheless, we kind of came up with that theory on what happened, and then based off of that, determined we're just going to put it back together while putting torque converter bolts in, and that should get us to where we can move. Another thing with that is we're not expecting to have a ton of transmission fluid coming out anymore, like what happened, because we believe not having the torque converter hooked up was the reasoning behind all of it, and it just being overfilled. There was still a small leak there where the torque converter is, the front input shaft seal, I'm assuming, or the front shaft seal, I don't know what it's called, the torque converter seal, whatever it's called. We're hoping that once we get that moving, it'll reseal up, just because of how much of a pain it'll be to actually take the intake manifold off and whatnot. And I'm kind of under the theory that if I'm going to pull the transmission again, well, not again, but if I'm actually going to pull the transmission out, I'm going to want to build it the way I want to. And right now, I cannot afford to do that, and I really don't want to do this twice. So I'm going to go ahead and try putting the torque converter bolts in, actually torquing it, and getting it to where it'll move. And if it has a small leak, it is what it is. We still are under the theory that the transmission's probably not going to last forever under the circumstances it's in. We have more transmissions in here. What I can do on the side is I can build another transmission. That way when this one goes, or when this one goes, I can build another transmission. That way it's just a quick swap. But yeah, that's kind of where we're leaning right now, where I'm leaning. So I think I'm actually going to go ahead and start throwing this truck back together. Which it's annoying that this is what happened with something overlooked like that, but it is what it is. I made a mistake. It was a very dumb, time-consuming mistake, but the only thing we can do is move on, and I'm going to go ahead and start putting it back together. So yeah, just a little update on where we are. It's frustrating, but it'll get there. Alright guys, pretty much got the transmission all put together. I have it up obviously with the cross members bolted in. I did get all the wires for the transmission put together. That's the O2 sensor, so I'm not worried about that right now. Got the neutral safety switch, got the linkage hooked up, and I got the drive shaft in. So we got everything back into the transmission pretty much to get it ready to roll. So obviously I got to put the exhaust back on, O2 sensors and whatnot, but I will be doing that at another time just because it is getting pretty late and my camera battery is about to die. And yeah, so I will work on that later, but as you can see, finished pretty much all the rework progress that we're going to get. So yeah, here we are. Everything's pretty much back to where it was. It's another day, if you can't tell. And we just filled the transmission fluid up on the truck after doing all that work. So now is the first time to actually take it for a quick test drive up and down the street. We know it moves. We had it on the lift and the wheels were turning, shifting it in gear. So
brakes might be a problem.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing is the brakes. When I'm pressing the brake in there when the truck is on, the brakes are to the floor. So not quite sure what that problem is right now, but we are going to go and try to give it a test drive. We'll throw it in neutral if we need to, and there is an e-brake that does work. So hopefully we won't need it, but yeah, that's going to be another option. So I'm going to go ahead, start her up, and take her for a quick test ride.
All right.
Wow. That's a big step.
All that work right there.
Yeah. Well, I guess there's really no need to say anything else. This will probably wrap it up for the video, just having the truck drive. So hope you all enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.